Morning, boys, and welcome to your final lesson of this academic year. Now, last week you looked at the Korean War, which is one of the comfy study for your Unit 2 piece of work, which is part of your America exam. This is the second lesson, and I want you to have a look this time at the Vietnam War. Now, this is the second war the Americans fought in the 20th century, shortly after the Korean War. Both of them were fought in Asia, and both of them were pretty controversial. But this one, Vietnam War, was so much more controversial. Now, I want to find out what that really means in terms of Vietnam and in terms of our word controversy. So I want you to write this title for me in your normal way on your piece of paper if you're doing it that way, or on a piece of, on Microsoft Word. It's absolutely fine. And then underneath, I want you to do 2 steps to your starter. The first thing I want you to do is write down everything you know about the Vietnam War, and there's some pictures on the screen for you to help you with that. And then underneath, I want you to write down what words you associate with the word controversial. Obviously, that's the underlying aim of today's lesson, is to judge why the Vietnam War was so controversial. So pause this video now and write down your 2 starters. And once you've finished, I think for what I'm going to do with you is I'm going to go through what I think you would have written down. So about the Vietnam War, it was fought between America and Vietnam. You can see in the top left picture there was chemical weapons. That's what that explosion is. It's called napalm. It explodes when it hits the ground. It caused lots of damage to people's bodies. You can see this boy underneath that picture with his very short arms. Obviously, those chemical weapons caused huge toll. Not only did it cause children to be deformed when they were born, but also caused widespread cancers and things because of the radioactivity. We have a picture in the middle of a South Vietnamese soldier killing a North Vietnamese suspect. So we've got internal fighting within Vietnam that's supported by the Americans. On the bottom right is this really famous image. This girl isn't just running without her clothes on, she hasn't just left them behind. They've been burned off her body. Literally, napalm, when it hits something that's natural, like cotton, will absolutely just burn it off her. So the cotton, the clothes, her school uniform has burnt off her body, and she's running with her teacher on the right-hand side, holding the hand of a younger classmate. She's running away from the napalm clouds you can see in the background. So you might have written that the Vietnam War was messy, it was controversial, it was wild, there was lots of destruction, and it's not really clear about who won or what happened. Then your second starter was about this word controversial. Well, the words I think you might have associated with it were sort of unknown. Lots of people, different opinions, different interpretations. It wasn't clear. Maybe controversy suggests that it wasn't the right thing to do. So there's lots of ideas we can draw out here for that keyword. So just check what you've written for me, and maybe add what I've just discussed to your description for your starter. So what we're going to do is first is what happened in this war. So I want you to find out literally what was going on. You've got a really good introduction video here, and I want you to answer these 6 questions in your notes as well. So you need to find out who was fighting. I've already told you a little bit about that, so you can answer those questions already. Why they fought. So think about the Americans and the North Vietnamese. Why were they fighting? They were fighting for slightly different reasons. I want you to think about what style of weapons we use, and I've given you a clue about chemicals there as well. And I've also given you a clue for the next one, the impact on people's health. Then I want you to look about a wider picture. So imagine you're zooming out from Vietnam, and you're looking back at America, and you're thinking, what did the public say about the war? You'll find a lot of information about the public response there. And then finally, this is a bit of an open-ended question for you guys to be thinking about the focus of today's lesson. Why do you think this war was so controversial? So just as you've been doing so well for the last few months, really, pause this video, open up that one that you can see on the screen into a new tab, and I'll include the link I'll show in my homework to make it easy for you, and then just jot down your key questions, or the answers to the key questions. Good luck. Now, I want to talk to you a little bit about the nature of Vietnam. These 4 pictures are taken from Vietnam. You can see on the top left these huge mountains that are very thick, densely vegetated. And by that I mean there's loads and loads of trees per square inch. Okay, there's loads and loads of difficult trees to get through. If you look on the top right-hand side, I know it's a bit pixelated, but it gives you an idea of how closely packed those trees are. In the bottom two pictures, you've obviously got pictures of waterways through Vietnam. The one on the left is just open, it's not being crossed, and you can see a boat in the very, very background. On the right-hand side, you can see soldiers walking across that waterway. Now, they were used for irrigation. For the geographers out there, you'll know that means when water is used to make sure that plants are hydrated, they're watered, okay, and they can grow. But also, if you remember that Vietnam is right close to the coast, so a lot of them are marshy lands because of the low-lying level of Vietnam itself. So the reason why I've shown you these pictures, is because I want you to imagine that you are those soldiers, or you're the commanding officer, and you're thinking, well, how can we defend these hills? It's going to be really, really difficult to see what's coming, to look over the next hillside because they look identical, they're all covered in the same thick vegetation. And actually, it's going to be really difficult to drive tanks across there, or, you can't. You might be able to sail a boat in the bottom pictures, but you can't sail a boat in the top pictures. So you're going to have a really, really difficult way of moving your troops across land. So that's one way that Vietnam is very controversial, because it's just so difficult to get around. So you found out a little bit about chemical weapons when you just watched the last video. Well, this is why they use things like Agent Orange. Now, you'll find in a minute in another video that it is a herbicide. That means it kills herbs, or for want of a better phrase, vegetation, trees, jungles, forests, grasses, marshlands. It just kills anything that's living. So that means if the Americans are trying to get through the pictures at the top with those thick trees, then they will be able to do so easily because they've just decimated it. They've got rid of it all. Okay, so Agent Orange was designed to do that. Napalm, slightly different substance, still a chemical. What it did was it hit the ground and then exploded, and it caused fires to spread really quickly, and that would also burn through the vegetation too. So those two chemical weapons were designed to clear the land so the Americans could fight much more easily. Okay, hopefully that gives you a little bit of context behind the situation in Vietnam. So going back to this question overall, I want you to answer using the box on the right-hand side, the yellow one, about the controversies of the Vietnam War. So I've given you some sentence starters, and I just want you to fill in what happened. And you'll find the 3 videos on the left-hand side tell you what happened. So the first one is about a declaration of war. So we're back in 1964, and we're in a place called the Gulf of Tonkin, okay? And there's an American ship that was fired upon. Now, if we look back on it, we can tell that we don't know who fired upon the Americans, and we don't really know if they did. And if they did do fire upon the Americans, well, none of the weapons actually hit the target. The ship wasn't damaged at all. So some people believe that the declaration of war that happened as a result of this event was built on lies, because the American ship was not struck at all. Now, President at the time, who was Johnson, used this as an excuse to start war. Now, I want you to use that sentence starter in a minute, and you can watch the video to find the context behind it as a way of filling in the blank of that sentence. The second controversy was about the chemical weapons. I've talked a little bit about those already, but I want you to see really visually. It's much more impactful if you see what happened. So click on this link to find out what the chemical weapons were and what the price was. So in your 2 blanks, your first blank where it says, for example, I want you to write down the chemical weapons, Agent Orange, napalm, for example, and then which cause, and then you want to tell me what those chemical weapons caused, or what effect were they. Okay, so think about the damage to the population, the damage to the natural resources, the trees, the rice, and all the farming methods that they'd use as well that were destroyed as a result. Finally, your third controversy, I want you to look at the American public and their reaction. So I want you to follow this link, and you'll find one of my favorite historians talking about the damage to the American belief in their own, and what they were doing was the right thing to do. Okay, so pause this video now, open up these 3, and I suggest you do them one at a time so that you can fill in the blanks and write out your sentences in full as you go through. Good luck again. So finally, this is a little bit like your career topic where I asked you to do the newspaper article at the end. This is going to be a creative writing task. So there were so many lessons learned from the Vietnam War. The Americans went in as the army that was bigger, had much, much, much more funding, and had much, much, much more advanced weaponry. So they had chemical weapons, and the Vietnamese were using sticks and spikes and spears and all this sort of thing alongside, guns and grenades and bombs and weapons that they were given or made themselves. So we've got the USA's shock and awe tactics by creating a massive, massive fight, massive warfare, and shocking the Vietnamese, hopefully shocking them so hard that they'd give in and they'd just, they'd surrender. But they proved much, much weaker than the simple tactics used by North Vietnam. You've got traps, you've got snake venom put on spikes that the American people were standing on. You've got people hiding underneath the undergrowth and disappearing into tunnels that are dug under the ground. So the Vietnamese were much, much better at working with that really difficult landscape we talked about. So what I'd like you to do is I want you to create your rules for warfare. I want you to think about what the Americans could have done differently and that maybe could have helped them to win. So on the right-hand side, in the yellow again, I've got what I think you should be writing. Again, you can use this sentence starter or you can write your own. But what I want you to do is write your rules for warfare. And the aim overall has got to be to achieve a quick victory with a minimal death toll or damage to people's and animals' lives. So we want to not cause too much destruction, but we want to actually achieve our aim, which is victory. So underneath, I want you to write your sentence starters or something similar, of course. And I want you to suggest to me what Americans could have done differently. Could they have not used chemical weapons, and could they have fought in a different way? Could they have picked up some of the Vietnamese tactics of using tunnels and natural resources, and how that would have made a difference? This is your opportunity to be creative, to find out another about it yourself, and submit something to your teacher that is unique and shows that you've really been thinking about this. Now, this is the second of the 2 units on the conflict in Asia that you'll be doing in September. So these 2 lessons are designed to give you an introduction to it. So I hope they've helped, and I hope you've enjoyed learning about them. And more to the point, I hope that you have a wonderful, relaxing summer, and that your lockdown doesn't look very much like the lockdown that we've got used to this term, that we'll see each other in September and it will be back to normal. So bye then, boys. Have a wonderful summer.